Hey, and welcome to the ProtoPod, the podcast for engineers, innovators, entrepreneurs, and trailblazers shaping the future. Here, we dive into the cutting-edge worlds of prototyping, aerospace, rapid manufacturing, high-velocity mass customization, and beyond. I'm your host, Jordan Rose. Today, we're joined by Brendan O'Brien, head of R&D at Vorne Industries, a company known for its durable, equipment-agnostic solutions that help manufacturers track productivity and minimize downtime. With a background in mechanical engineering, data analytics, and sustainability, Brendan brings a global perspective and a people-first approach to driving lasting improvements in manufacturing. Hey, Brendan, welcome into the podcast. Pleasure to have you here today.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for having me, Jordan. Happy to be here.
I was reading through your bio, really interesting. You sound like you have a wide array of experience in different disciplines, data analytics, mechanical engineering. You're now the head of R&D at Vorne Industries. Can you walk us through how your experience has kind of led you to the current position you have at Vorne?
Yeah, absolutely. I am fortunate that it is a sum of many small experiences that kind of put me here. I was in university at Georgia Tech, and through that, got connected with some folks who worked for this German manufacturing company, TRUMPF, and got me interested both in manufacturing more generally as a discipline. I was studying mechanical engineering, but I wasn't sure exactly where that was going to go. And that taught me a lot about the manufacturing environment when I went to go work at TRUMPF. And it also gave me a deep appreciation for Germany and the German culture. I had the opportunity to go work over there. And after that, spent some time doing analytics. I thought it was an interesting way to expand my horizons a little bit, do a little bit more beyond what my degree said I was set up to do. And all of that ended up putting me right back into an engineering position here at Vorne. So the scope is a little bit bigger than pure engineering. I have the opportunity to do stuff like this, lots of prototyping, as we've seen with our experiences with the Proto case so far, and a lot of part sourcing and general procurement as well. So it's been a winding path, but one that's given me real appreciation for what the heck all of our customers are doing, and also the way that we have an opportunity to really serve them well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I relate a lot to that experience. I also was a mechanical engineering student. Ended up working at ProtoCase after graduation, and the manufacturing world, at least for me in my engineering experience in university, you don't really learn too much about that world and the ins and outs of it and how incredible it is. Especially. Working in a mass custom, high velocity mass custom environment like we do here, it's just really cutting edge manufacturing, and it's very interesting. And you don't get exposed to that, so I can relate a lot. The other thing that stuck out to me in what you said was you talked about getting experience in the German culture. Coming from Georgia Tech. Can you explain to us maybe what impact that had on you? What specifically was it about the German culture that maybe allowed you to do your job differently or in a different way, a better way?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, their approach to engineering and precision is on another level, one that really helped me with the way of thinking through problems and really tackling things detail-oriented way, and as well as just considering the whole picture for both your role at the company and then what the company's doing more broadly. It's when you have a company whose history is almost as long as the history of the country that you're living in, you grow to appreciate one's ability to have that kind of longevity. And so for me, it was a lot about that and a lot about seeing how these disparate parts can work together very well. Much like a German engineered car, their companies are many different parts that work together in harmony in a really precise, well-engineered way. There's a reason German engineering has the name it does, no question about it.
Absolutely. Really interesting. I was wondering, too, if you could expand a little bit on what your role is now. You kind of touched on that, alluded to the fact that, you do some engineering, but you're much more involved with prototyping and maybe other engagements like this. But what does a day look like as the head of R&D at Vorne?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jordan. It's everything from, we start on the paper engineering side, the actual drawings themselves, all the way through to the final procurement and signing off, validating of parts, be they mechanical parts or electrical parts as well. So, for example, this faceplate was a component that we did with ProtoCase back in the day. It's been, gosh, I think 2 years now,
Oh,
more or less,
wow.
since we first did this with you guys. And obviously, procuring this was important. But then on the backside, you have a PCB that we did the design for in house and had to go find a contract manufacturer both to do the fabrication, but somebody local as well to do the actual assembly. So all of that kind of falls under the purview of research and development.
Mm.
So that is how it all kind of flows throughout the day. A day like today morning, I spent working with some vendors on procuring some parts. We went to a show earlier to go look at some suppliers for production, mass production enclosures. And later today, there will be some discussions about how we are going to make sure that the logic board that we're installing works really well with the software that we need to run on it. So it is a full scope, wide
Mm.
breadth role, but it's given me an opportunity to learn many different disciplines and kind of see how all these silos knit together, which I certainly appreciate. Kind of a bit of a learning mode a lot of the time.
Absolutely. So you're obviously developing, full spectrum solutions for Vorne to offer to all of its customers. What do you think, if you could put into a few sentence description, what do you think Vorne does for their customers in terms of like solving a pain point for them? What does Vorne allow them to do better than they would without you guys?
Yeah, I'll try and put on my marketing hat, though
Yeah,
fair warning,
absolutely.
engineer, not marketer.
Yeah.
Our the tagline we try to use with customers a lot is that we make things extra easy. And
I
so
like that.
what does that mean? Is we are taking something that you could spend a lot of time doing manually or throwing it into Excel, a lot of production monitoring. So, what does production monitoring mean? Tracking counts, tracking throughput of your process. You can do that to an extent manually, but it's a huge use of your manpower, a huge use of your time, and frankly, is not a value add when you're having an operator take a ton of time out of their day to do something like that. So, rather than doing it that way, you throw one of our appliances onto the side of your production line, hook it up to, like I said, easy one or two sensors, not some complex system. And then you can start tracking that data and figuring out, okay, where do I actually have to improve? Am I losing time because we ran out of material? Am I losing time because the machine broke down? Am I losing time because somebody showed up a few minutes late to a shift? It's all about trying to figure out where losses and reduce that lost time. Again, in a way that is really easy and process agnostic. There are different ways that you can tackle this. If you are a greenfield factory that has just been installed, and you can go full smart factories top to bottom where you have the latest and greatest tech. Sometimes you don't need something that you bolt on after the fact.
Hmm.
But the fact of the matter is, many production lines have old machines, new machines, a whole mix. Our process layers over theirs in a way that lets you abstract this and say, my machine that's 50 years old, my press over there, I can measure that the same way I can measure my 1 year old multi-million dollar fancy tool over here. And I can look at the same data comparatively rather than having to patchwork all this together.
Yeah, I really like that. So it's really all about the design principles of accessibility and making things easy. As the head of R&D, how do you lead your team in enacting those principles into your development process? How does that work?
A lot of it comes down to whenever we're making a decision, asking how is this going to work for the customer. So you can call that customer oriented, you can call that keeping the customer in mind, but for us it is, if we're going to put silk screen onto the side of a panel, which we're doing right now, it it makes sense to be very specific about how we're presenting the information for wiring up a sensor so that they don't have to go consult a manual. They don't have to go take time to step away from the machine to go do something else. So it's for us, it's a lot about trying to understand when we're making this decision, how do we make sure that's something that will serve the customer? Another one, for example, we could have made a decision to fully seal our enclosure in a way that you couldn't really open it up. But we're in a day and age where repairability it fell out of vogue for a bit, but nowadays people are caring about that a lot more. And so we designed the enclosure in such a way that you can open it if you need to go replace the coin cell battery after a few years, or access some switches inside to put it into a troubleshooting mode. So we're trying to always be really deliberate and make sure that we're not making a piece of equipment that customers get frustrated with. Sometimes that's a learning experience over a few iterations, but that is always the end goal, is let's make this easier, not harder, so that customers are able to say, okay, I'm glad that I'm installing this, not, man, that was a real pain, and I'm glad that I don't have to worry about installing this ever again.
Yeah, I really like that. The customers are number one piece of that. That's something that we definitely talk a lot about. It's on every wall in every room in all of our buildings, because it is so important, right? That empathy and putting yourself in their shoes, and knowing how what you're producing is impacting them. I was curious, like, the other thing I noted is that you talked about, using very simple sensors. You're trying to make things kind of ubiquitous, making them apply across multiple different pieces of equipment. Obviously, I really like that because it's almost like open source software, right? You can just plug it in
Right,
and use it the
right.
way that you want to use it. How does the design process look for that, the specifics? Like, are there any sort of principles you guys use in order to make sure that, your prototyping process to produce those designs is happening effectively?
Yeah, I think a big part of that comes down to the pre-research that you do before you make a decision. So on our side, a good example is we decided, you talked about open source or standard. We threw on a series of M12 connectors onto the side of
Mm,
the enclosure, and that was very deliberate. We
mm,
wanted to choose something that seems to be picking up steam in the industry, but not something that is so brand new that it creates another pain point. And so that becomes part of it, is then we go to talk to our software engineers and say, hey, can we make sure that whether a customer is connecting up a connector, a sensor that is M12 by design, will that work well with our device without them having to do extra configuration? Or if they have a sensor that's off the shelf, is there a way for them to field wire that in a way where they can plug it in as well? So to be able to accompany and accommodate both of those situations takes a little bit of balancing and takes a lot of time to research to make sure that
yeah.
you're not putting yourself into a corner where if somebody has a different type of sensor, you're going to burn out their sensor. That's something where you have to spend a lot of time up front doing the research online and the customer calls to make sure, hey, are we actually giving you something that you want?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something we also talk about internally with our projects and our development for our manufacturing facility. Is the idea of identifying known unknowns, right? And that's really that research is what
Right,
things are going
right,
to bite us
exactly.
here, right? And then moving as fast as you can to eliminate those unknowns. So learning about those as quickly as possible and testing. And I can relate to that one a lot. And I do think that's a very effective strategy. I wonder, obviously, like, you're having a massive impact on your customers. I would imagine the results of implementing a system like this would be huge in terms of uptime and reducing bottlenecks and that sort of thing. Can you talk to me about any specific projects that might have given you a lot of fulfillment? Anything you're most proud of?
There are two things I would say on that, Fred. I think one is the longer arc. This product itself, the smaller footprint, is a more recent launch for us.
Okay.
The company's been in business for 50 years, and we've grown and changed over that time as you have to adapt to the environment you're in. And for 25 years now, we've sold a all-in-one IoT device that is a LED scoreboard, but we've had a lot of customers asking for a smaller footprint version as well. So this was a response to that, this most recent product that we used ProtoCase for a lot of the prototyping for. And just seeing that light up the first time with all of the components that you can point to and say, hey, we talked to that vendor last week and we just locked down the production drawing for that part. And this we lit up a month ago with the software team, and being able to see all of that finally integrate all together, that was really satisfying. Especially, then marketing puts it up on the website, and you see all of this nice copy on the website talking about the product that you've worked on for a year and a half, 2 years at that point, to get to a launch point. Very satisfying. The next one might sound a little silly and small scale, but I think kind of speaks to the beauty of engineering when you can really get down to it, which is, just recently we've been looking at IP rating the product to IP54, so
Okay.
dustproof, waterproof.
Yep.
We want to go beyond that if we're going to advertise that rating in the future. And to do that, we had to just design a simple clip, and it took 3 months to figure out that a clip is all we need. And when we finally took this tiny piece of bent metal and looked at it and realized, man, it's such a simple solution to a complex problem. How do we get a consistent seal across this faceplate on the device? That's one of those satisfying engineering feelings where you go, I can't believe the solution is this simple. There's some beauty in that, finding a really simple solution to a very complex problem. So that maybe it's a small thing to be proud of, but finally seeing that come together and say, for 3 months we were trying to wrap our head around how we can actually compress this uniformly without messing with the aesthetics. And hidden clip, that's what it is. All right, we finally figured it out and implemented it. That's great.
I think it's incredible, and I don't think it's a too small thing to be proud of at all. I think that, like you said, like some of the simplest things are the most elegant, and in fact, it's all about reaching the goal, and whether it be with the new product or with an upgrade to the existing product. Knowing that goal of doing either of those things is met is really where the satisfaction comes. So I think those are two great examples. Brendan, do you have any advice for anybody who may be listening? You've got a large set of experiences in various industries. You're now the head of R&D. Anybody who may be wanting to enter the world of manufacturing, a young engineer that is listening, what advice would you give them, to move forward with their career?
I think it's really important to cast a wide net, open yourself up to different types of opportunities. I don't think I would be here in this job today if I didn't take the opportunity to go talk to this TRUMPF company that I knew very little about beforehand. And I thought I was going to go work in the aerospace industry and possibly working in space technology. And I found something that ended up being deeply fulfilling to me here on the ground, and it worked out really great. And so for me, it's a lot about just experimenting and trying your hand at a few different things. We're young, and when you're young, you have the opportunity to try a few things before you figure out what you're actually going to be doing for a long period of time or grow into that. So you don't have to just land immediately in the right spot doing the thing that you expected you were going to be doing beforehand. So try things, hop around.
I love it. That's excellent advice, I think. I couldn't agree more. If folks listening are looking to learn more about Vorne Industries, where would they find you guys?
Yeah, we are on our website, Vorne, V as in Victor, ORNE.com. That's where we are usually maintaining all of our content, as well as LinkedIn under the same name. And we've been trying a YouTube channel as well to put out some educational materials. So we've been maintaining a couple websites about OEE, which is a principle of operating effectiveness, and lean production, the concept more broadly. And so we put some of those materials on our YouTube channel, as well as some informational websites we maintain as well.
I'll definitely check that out. I'm interested to learn more. I love what I hear about you guys, and I think it definitely would be impactful to a number of different manufacturing facilities. So,
yeah, happy to hear that, Jordan. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much again for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you. And until next time, bye-bye. See you, Brendan.
Yes, take care. Thank you for having me again. Looking forward to the next one.